Welcome to what is probably the last game of 2019, the third one in the series, and this one is going to be a special one. We've got Robert and George here joining us for a four-person game in the abandoned monitoring station in Dallas, Texas. And this is our initial setup of the board. Halfway through turn one, so it is George and I playing the Axis. He's Japan, I'm Germany and Italy. And Chris and Robert playing the Allies. We just finished Japan's turn. Japan has not declared war, so again, a welcome change of pace from the J1s we've been experimenting with lately. We have a kind of classic build-up here in Kwangsi. On the European board, we have not declared war on Russia, but we've certainly piled up along the Eastern Front while taking care of the British Navy. The Bismarck did not make it up in 111 because Robert scrambled and took care of that. Got some good rolls. Did not get that 50-50 shot over here. So how will the Allies respond on the rest of turn one? As we begin turn two, the U.S. is not in the war still, so we've got a little bit of build up here. Not really much, really. What did you do? Did you build something in Hawaii? You built a
military base.
Built a military base in Hawaii. Okay, so we got a little infrastructure going on there. ANZAC doing its thing as well. Taking some money islands for itself, while Calcutta pulling westward as it often does on turn one, consolidating that navy, getting into the Middle East, and sending planes up to support the European effort as well. So real aggressive westward move by the Indians. On this side of the board, Italy, mostly successful turn, although some missteps. Had a little adventure into Syria, trying to take advantage of that exposed bomber. Didn't work out so well, didn't even manage to get rid of the French infantry. That was a complete bust. However, moving in on Egypt, Greece, Yugoslavia, the rest of it, French Navy, all going pretty well within normal parameters. So we've got UK piling into Morocco as well, and perhaps predictably, US building up the seeds of a Germany first strategy. So how will things unfold on the rest of turn two? Halfway through turn two, just completed Japan's turn. There is still no declaration of war. We have built up in China, inched forward along the western line there. You did build the facility.
Oh, yeah, I need a place there.
Yeah, they're not on the board yet. There's a air strip and naval base in Kwangsi. Approach we've seen variations of in the past, although now we've got quite a significant navy hugging Southeast Asia naval zones there. ANZAC positioned that way from last turn. On the European board, Germany has assessed the situation here in London and reacted by purchasing 8 transports, pulling back land units, signaling that it might be willing to do something.
No, it's fine.
So moving up as many tanks into transport range as possible. Moving this navy down to take advantage of the exposed UK naval units down there, and that went favorably. So we'll see how the Allies react on the rest of turn two. All right, beginning of turn three. The Americans adding to the intrigue up here by dropping a fleet up in the Alaskan waters, peeking over the top of an empty Japan right now. As the rest of the American fleet kind of gets out of the way, but for Mr. One Destroyer just being an obstacle there, or at least complicating matters for Japan, depending on who shoots who first. Meanwhile, ANZAC doing what it does best when it's not being invaded like it was last turn, which is being really, really annoying. So he's taking now 2 money islands. ANZAC collecting 18 without even being at war or any bonuses. So that is not a bad situation for them. Calcutta, hard to say what they're doing other than just hanging out, waiting to get invaded. You know, inching through the Middle East as well, but with the threat of sea lion on the horizon, all the bills, as you would expect, went into London this past turn. Italy, though, enjoying the fruits of the failed Tobruk raid, since that didn't break UK's way in the first turn. It has a fair number of surviving units down here. The folks that were in Egypt, except for the ANZACians, they backed off over here. So UK is not out of Africa yet, not by a long shot. You see the entire Calcutta Navy over here, including that battleship, which is something, and bomber and such down here in South Africa. So there's still a game to be played in Africa. But, you know, good news is Italy has Egypt, and that's always a nice thing for the Axis. Let's see how they capitalize on that advantage on the rest of turn 3. Halfway through turn 3, and this is not quite the arrangement we expected. So Japan has not yet declared war. Instead, it has cleared out China. Wasn't able to hold Yunnan last turn, as you may have seen, so it is now taken Yunnan with authority enough to hold it this time, and has everything else otherwise in position, including this naval unit here, represented by that blow-up box, represents this whole Navy with some loaded transports to boot. We've got 2 more transports down here in the Malayan Sea Zone with land units aboard, cognizant of the sneaky Carl option, decided ultimately to keep those on the boat. In the European map, boy, you would have expected to see a German flag over London, but that didn't work out. The first round, the UK defenders got an irrational number of hits, which really kind of tilted the game in a direction we didn't expect. So all the land units got wiped out. Planes were able to pull back. Germany, of course, had built another round of land units that can go in. So they're poised to take another stab at a Seawolf on turn 4. But of course, in the meantime, nothing here in East Germany, and all sorts of Russians just knocking on that door. So whatever happens, it's going to hurt for a while. Let's hope the Allies don't put on too much hurt on the rest of turn 3. Now the beginning of turn 4, ending turn 3. U.S. is consolidating with the ANZACians, evidently on an island hopping tour. You see that ANZAC's taken this island set down here, the Marianas, and is building a ridiculous sized fleet, as tends to happen when ANZAC gets ignored for a while, because he's taken 3 of the money islands. He's getting a redonkulous amount of cash for ANZAC. It's 30-something this time around. Built a carrier. He has enough to build a carrier and a battleship next time if he wants to. So that's going to have to be dealt with here in the near future. Of course, island hopping being one of the victory tokens, so we need to keep an eye on that. But, I mean, that's what you expect ANZAC to do and America to do when Japan's not attacking. We'll get on the rest of turn 4 an option to see whether or not that was a worthy investment, with now that Japan's in a position to attack the British down there. This time on the end of turn 3, Italy has consolidated its control of the Suez Canal, dumping quite a few guys here in Transjordan, opening up a door to interesting possibilities here in both Africa and the Middle East. Not to be outdone, the Allies are still coming in from every corner and still have a nifty little fleet down here, so not to be underestimated. But otherwise, Italy is building up some stuff. So we built an air base in Cairo to protect things down there, but otherwise just kind of scrambling to protect, or at least help hold some of these flanks here against the oncoming Russian red horde that will be approaching on turn 4. Halfway through turn 4, start with the good news for the Axis, which is that the slow burn Calcutta crush strategy has finally come to fruition. So we've commandingly taken India, as well as almost all of the rest of Southeast Asia, with a sizable fleet left in position to finally deal with these pesky little ANZACians. It's going to take a while to get some momentum back in the Pacific, but Japan now has the freedom to point itself entirely eastward and deal with what's coming over here. Now, that's the good news. The rest of the story is the debacle that is the attempt to take London. So twice in a row now, we've had 10 transports full of dudes supported by a hefty amount of aircraft coming into London. Odds in their favor as far as we can calculate, since we're not actually using odds calculators in this game, but you know, rough numbers on paper surely indicated that each time around we should have taken London. But did we take it? No. There's actually still plenty of Londoners still there. And that's because Robert here is ridiculous at rolling 2s. Each time, I think he's rolled, what, orders of magnitude more than he should have.
12 hits
One
the
or
first
two
time and 13
standard deviation
yeah.
away,
Yeah, like
May the
12
odds
hits.
Against
be-
everybody, not just
May the odds
Germany.
be forever in my favor.
Well, they are, as long as you're rolling 2s. So that means Germany is left with a ragtag little force here, while the red wave is just crushing Eastern Europe. So it actually is not implausible that Germany could fall because he's failed to take London. So we'll see what they can't accomplish here on the rest of turn 4. Beginning of turn 5. See the Allies taking a cautious approach in the Pacific, but still with an enormous navy building up. That's carrier group number 1 for ANZAC, carrier group number 2 just having been built, and taking a slow but steady island hopping strategy, having just taken Palau. Nothing to report on Calcutta. Continues to not exist. China kind of flaring back out up there like a bad rash. Have to take care of that pretty soon.
Ointment for that.
It's going to be a Japanese
It's a
ointment
Chinese
for that.
remedy.
On the European side, the Italians, a lot of little red dots around too. They're spreading out into the Middle East, kind of getting a little contiguous zone of control here with the Japanese. That'll be interesting, but still quite a bit of British coming back up from South Africa with a sizable navy to support them, and air support as well. So they're climbing back up the African ladder and back towards Egypt, which probably going to fall back into their hands, but Italy is now at least in sole command of this Persian area where they're going to start getting economic bonuses. That said, there is still quite a bit of dudes coming at Germany. Germany's turn to see if they can hold them back, but U.S. now parking 6 bombers, and as certainly was expected at this point, having used those bombers to wipe out the German Navy. So all that investment gone to naught for the Germans, and another round of shuck coming from the U.S. So see what Germany can do to hold out. Halfway through turn 5, Japan has brought itself back out into the Pacific, kind of started to consolidate its own zone of control, namely by taking all 4 money islands at once, which is fantastic because it really boosted its income, cut ANZAC's ridiculous amount of production down, and started to assert some control in these areas that the Allies have been running rampant in. So some nice positioning. China is obviously flaring out a bit, but Japan's now building a wall against further incursion and hopefully slow that spread. Russia, see the writing on the wall in the Middle East, is starting to build some units down there in the south. Over here, you may not see much difference from where we started the turn, but Germany actually brought its stack, everything it could, down into Slovakia to start chipping away at the wall of red here, and did that, was able to take Slovakia rather handedly, and had a huge stack left there, but the Russians brought literally everything that could reach it from the nether regions back here and took it back. So they still own the same amount of land, but fewer units there to back them up. So we'll see how the Allies continue to press this advantage on the rest of turn 5. Beginning in round 6, we see the island hopping strategy of the Allies continuing to play out. The ANZACs have taken Okinawa, leaving only Iwo Jima before the Allies get a victory token for that. Meanwhile, they've consolidated all here at the Carolines. Pretty impenetrable fleet there, and slightly out of reach of the equally large Japanese fleet down here. ANZAC originally intending to build a battleship and carry on their chutzpah until realizing that, oh, wait a minute, that's a huge fleet right off our island. Maybe I ought to, defend my homeland. I don't know, try something new. So, in the interim, the UK has completed occupying France since Italy had to back out of that, forced Italy out, and got the tech propaganda, which is nice. A little extra income for the Brits. While at the same time, Italy has taken all of the Middle East, getting an economic bonus, which is not nothing at this point in the game for Italy, and throwing down a military base just to hang on to it for that much longer. And in the meantime, so the U.S. brought its land units into southern France. Italy was able to repulse those and hang on to southern France. Not that there isn't more Americans behind them, but still slowing the progress a little bit. At the same time, Italy sent some troops here into Slovakia, not really to beat it, but to soften it up a little bit, pulled back a few remaining artillery. And we'll see if Germany can't take advantage of that on turn 6. Halfway through turn 6, Japan is now starting to build up its own respectable sized navy up in the home sea zone. In retrospect, we decided we wish we would have gotten rid of the subs, but at the time we left open the ability not to. But in any event, this token right here represents this here blow-up box, which is, I think, more than adequate match to this multinational force over here, which are always great for defense, not always so great for offense, especially when the U.S. has already lost all its aircraft over here. So there's really not a lot of offensive capability left in that naval conflagration. Beefing up India just because, so we don't have any incursions over here. On the European board, Russia just continues to beef itself up, throwing 2 more military bases down since it apparently didn't have enough production capability. And again, trading territories here, Germany having taken out all the tanks, all the offensive units there in Slovakia, pretty handily since he's having to soften that up for them. Russians took it back, but after all this trading back and forth, Russia is really left with nowhere near the land units it had when it first rolled in. Now, Germany's not exactly in a position to take advantage of that very well, but that said, I mean, it's got offensive air units, but very few in the way of ground units. So it's a stalemate right there, but certainly with the backup of the rest of these allies, it's going to be an interesting turn 6. All right, so we just completed the U.S. turn, the UK turn on turn 6, and yeah, we've got 2-3 turns left in this game, even until Germany falls, and at that point, we still don't have probably enough victory tokens to win the game proper. But we're all of a mind that the outcome of the game is inevitable, and that is that Axis lose because once you get to this point where they're all nibbling away at Germany, unless Japan's really just killing it, then there's no way the Axis can live, and that's where we're at now. So, and I think, and yeah, everybody chime in. This is a group thing. This isn't just me narrating, but I think we all agree that the turning point of the game was twice failing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it was not just once, but it was twice,
Yeah.
and that gutted all of Germany. No one had attacked Russia. Russia starts pouncing to get +3 per territory, which, FYI, for those watching at home, we're going to nerf that in the future to get +2 instead of +3, just to sort of slow that down a little
Oh,
bit.
it's still a lot.
It is,
You
for
put
sure.
2 for all those, that's still a crap ton.
Well, yeah, for sure, but it's less a crap ton than +3.
And for the record, I've never had dice rolls like that in my entire life. So, I'll take what I can get, and being left on an island by yourself waiting for the U.S. to come in for 4 turns says a lot, and I think that really changed the dynamic of the game.
Well, the U.S. had the perfect buys for what ended up happening, because I just came in and gutted that Navy, and it was...
Right. Well, that's why I bought the air base, right? Because I anticipated you attacking
Sure.
that Navy. First time around, I could have defended it, because you only had 3 bombers, and I had plenty of planes. Second time around, you have 6 bombers.
Yep.
And now I have no planes parked there defending it, because I see the writing on the wall, right? In retrospect, do I wish that I would have at first taken Scotland and then taken London?
Yeah.
Sure. I would have overpowered it at that point. But, both times, the straight invasion of London, the odds should have been in its favor. But it just didn't work out that way. Like, not even close. And it's not just because, one roll tilted this way or that way. It's because you rolled a ridiculous number of 2s both times for
Yeah.
UK.
For sure.
Yeah.
Agreed. Listen, I legitimately thought after, the middle of turn 2 that we were going to lose this game, because for sure London was going to fall, because we didn't build up in London the first turn that I thought, we were going to.
Right.
And I was like, oh, well, that's fine. We'll just come back from, somewhere else. But no, Robert had a secret strategy. That was he was just going to roll a virtual piss ton of 2s.
Right.
Yeah.
If you don't believe in your hands,
You hit a lot of ones on my planes on the AA shots. Going
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
Hurt.
And you're every game you're going to have some good rolls and bad rolls, right? Usually the luck balances out a little bit, and we had our share of good rolls. Not that good, but we had some good rolls.
Yeah.
But when it happens consistently on such a key turning point in the game,
It was such a large battle. Or it's one thing to
Well,
say,
yeah, it's one thing when it's a
I
little
lost
battle.
4 tanks, I should have done that. It's another thing to say, I just lost half my standing army.
right? Half of Germany. And this is just like you said. This is one of those situations where I didn't start off the game planning on doing a sea line, right? But you always give yourself that opportunity, and when UK on the first turn, since all its aircraft down here, and left them in places where I could pick them off. There was really no Royal Air Force left after turn 1, and London was such a tempting target, I couldn't pass it up.
You played the game exactly the way I would have played it.
Oh yeah, I would have done it too.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out the way we thought it would.
Yeah.
And then I was just able to, as the U.S., start moving, creating the highway of guys coming in. There's no resistance on that side of the board. And Italy had a terrific game.
Wow. Italy was killing it, even until
Germany
2
wasn't-
turns ago.
If Germany wasn't a
Yeah.
basket case, this game was over. And it's all because of that sea line.
Yeah.
Right, and because UK was tied up over here so long, it didn't get a chance to do its Middle Earth strategy, and I was able to pick off the Air Force, which let me take Egypt and then get a pass into the Middle East. So if I'd been able to hold on to that without getting annihilated back here, that makes for a pretty good economy.
Yeah. For sure.
And over here in Japan, the Calcutta crush strategy, it didn't work exactly like it's normally scripted, but it did work at the end of the day. J4, Calcutta was gone pretty handedly. And the focus on here takes you out of position a little bit. It gives them the chance to come in, but you snap back and have an awfully large Japanese Navy that they're never going to puncture through again.
Yeah, how many units did I have in Calcutta? I had at least, I felt maybe 20.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
always
He-
going to take
he
it with
had
the Air Force.
so
unless-
Yeah,
many
no, it's the Air Force.
So many high rollers there that
Right near in that
there's
position,
nothing I
yeah.
can do.
You didn't really lose that many planes in the invasion.
Yeah, no, I lost them all in the
AA guns.
AA guns. Yeah,
Yeah.
3 or 4 AA guns hit that.
yeah, 4.
All right. Well, good game. Good
It
learning.
was
game.
enjoyable.
Good game,
Yeah,
absolutely.
good game. Yeah,
I appreciate you guys playing with the house rules.
Yeah.
If you guys,
No,
you know,
it was fun.
Oh, those were
Like
great.
anything?
Those were great
Yeah.
rules. I loved them, and they were easy to follow. So that's the best part about it. There's house rules that get convoluted are the worst. So
Look at that. An endorsement for the abandoned monitoring station house rules. We played Omega 3.0 version, and we'll be updating it to 3.1 here to incorporate some lessons learned even through these games.
I love the bonuses. They're so much fun.
yeah.
Cool.
good game. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.